So recording has started. The first thing is we want to use the online Python compiler. Like I said, we may not necessarily install anything for now except a web browser. So we go to just type. Let me share my screen. Can we all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I just Google online Python compiler and I'm using the very first one. Okay. So how we delete everything here? And let's start typing quotes. Now, this is an empty page. We want to run our quotes. In Python programming, if you want, we have some things we call inbuilt commands. Inbuilt commands. These inbuilt commands are like verbs. They are, we understand, okay, the programming language is like our day-to-day language. And, but in this case, we are communicating with, sorry, the class is being recorded. Okay, please don't display sensitive information or sensitive part of yourself. The class is being recorded, please. Okay, so back to what I was saying. A programming language is like our day-to-day language. English, Yoruba, Hausa, just general language. We are like that, Igbo. But in this case now, the only difference is that we are communicating with computers instead of communicating with fellow human beings. In this case, we are communicating with computers. We are speaking with computers. But it has its own verbs. Verbs in this case, they are like, now, do you understand verbs? If I tell you sit down, you know that a verb is an action word. So when I say sit down, you know you have to sit. When I say stand up, then you stand up. So in this case now, our verb here, they are known as inbuilt commands. Our verbs here are known as inbuilt commands. When we say these verbs, when we say these things, when we say these inbuilt commands, our computer immediately knows what to do or how to respond to it. Our computer knows what to do or how to respond to verbs. Once it sees verbs, then it knows what to do. And these verbs are known as inbuilt commands. The first one you're going to be looking at is the print. Print. When we print anything, it will automatically display it. It will. If you don't print it, it's not going to display it. Let me start with this. On the screen, I have 7. If I click on run to run this code, I will not see anything. We can't see anything. That's because we are yet to tell Python to display it. If you don't tell Python to display something, Python is not going to display it for you. So in order to inform Python to display it, we use print. So I can now say print 7. Once I say print 7, then Python will display it. Can we see this result on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions so far before we proceed?
Sorry. When you said Python should print 7, what happened? I didn't see any.
So when we are just in this case, like I said, most of this is to learn Python programming, to show it to the users. If you don't print it, then the users will not see anything. Python will not see anything. Whatever you want to display to your user, then you print it out by saying print 7. Then when you run it, your users can now see the results. If you
All
don't
right.
print it,
Thank
it's not going to be displayed to your users.
you. Okay.
Any other question? Can we move on?
Yes.
Now let's do something more interesting. Let's say I have 7 and I want to display 7 times 5. That would be 35. Python has the ability to process things, not just to display, but it can also do some processing.
Let's
So
mute ourselves, please. Because I,
please, let's all mute our mic.
yes, thank you. You're disturbing us.
Okay, so back to what I was saying. Python has the ability to process things, to do mathematical calculations. I can say 7 times 5, this is 35. So this will automatically display 35. But if I click on run, it's not going to display it because I'm here to use the word print. So I can say print 7 times 5. So this will print 35. Let's move on. We want to go into what we call variables. Variables, let me type it out. Variables are containers. They are boxes where we store values. Variables are containers, boxes where values are kept. And most of the time, the reason you are keeping these variables is mainly to use it later in the future, to use it at some other time. So you want to create a box, store something inside that box, so that you can use whatever is inside that box at a later point in the future. Now, let's say I'm in my kitchen and I'm in my house, I want to keep things. I can create a box and store salt in it. Like I can just get a container and keep salt in it. Then I can create another container and put, let's say, Maggi in it. Then I can create another container and put detergent in it. Again, I can create a container, put salt. I can create another container, put Maggi, then create another container, put detergent. Now, at night, if those containers, or not even during the day, if those containers are not labeled, then I can mistakenly cook with Maggi and detergent because they are not well labeled. In this case, whenever we create containers, it is very important that you label those containers appropriately. You know, I said variables are boxes. They are containers where values are kept. So when you create those boxes, those containers, then always label them appropriately. It makes it easy for you to use these containers later in the future. 1. 2 is this. Imagine I sent someone to my kitchen to help me put salt on fire, or maybe I'm cooking something. Since the person is not familiar with my kitchen, then it is very, very, very likely for the person to make mistake. And when you are building applications, when you are doing in the world of programming generally, you won't be the only one working on a project. It's going to be a teamwork. So if you don't label the containers appropriately, then you're going to be giving other co-developers, you're going to be giving them problems to work with you because they won't understand a lot of things. So please label your containers appropriately. So next thing is, how then do we create containers? How do we create these variables? This is one of those reasons I love Python. Python is a language that makes it very easy for you to create a variable. So let's create the first variable. To create a variable, first thing, you just write the label of your container. You start with the label of your container. What label do I want to give my variable? At the moment, we have 9 persons in class. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 persons in class. So let's say I want to create a container to hold the number of persons in this class. So all I need to do is to say just a number of persons in class. Are we getting it? Just say number of persons in class. In this case now, I've created a container called number of persons in class. I can now insert a value in it by using equal to. So with this, I'm inserting it inside this container called number of persons in class. Any question before we proceed? Now, if you run this code, it's not going to work. It's going to throw back an error because there are some rules that guide variable declaration. There are some rules that guide this name. You can't just use any name. You can't. Let's look at those rules together. Number 1. A variable name must not have spaces in between them. So, meaning that we need to remove these spaces. That's the first rule. A variable name must not contain white spaces. So this is a valid variable name. Another rule that guides variable declaration is that a variable name must not be a keyword. Keywords are similar to inbuilt commands. Remember at the beginning of the class, I talked about inbuilt commands, that when Python sees these inbuilt commands, it automatically knows what to do. So these inbuilt commands, well, inbuilt commands they are a bit different from keywords, but then we need to know that keywords, like inbuilt commands, when Python sees these keywords, it automatically knows what to do. So you don't use inbuilt commands, you don't use keywords as variable names. We call these reserved words, like they are meant for specific purposes in Python programming. So you don't use them in declaring your variable. If you observe the other time, when I spaced it, in and class, they were in blue. Do you observe? In and class are currently in blue. Because in is an inbuilt command and class is also an inbuilt command. Are we still following?
Okay. Yes.
Alright. So in is an inbuilt command and class is also an inbuilt command. So I can't create a variable that looks like this, in equals to 8. A variable name must not be a reserved word or a keyword. I can't say class. Thank God, with our current compiler, it's going to automatically write them in blue so that you can know that this is an inbuilt, right? This is a keyword. So a variable name must not have spaces in between. A variable name must not be a keyword. Let's proceed. A variable name, let's in class. Next thing, a variable name must not contain special characters except $, underscore, and hyphen. Python allows hyphen. A variable name must not contain special character except these three, any of these three, $, underscore, or hyphen. Meaning that I can't say plus, I can't use plus, I can't use minus. Okay, hyphen, minus is hyphen, you're allowed to use that. But I can't use @. I can't use special characters in declaring my variable name. Then a variable name must not start with a number. I can't have this. A variable name must not start with a number, but it can contain number elsewhere. So I can say, since it must not have spaces also, I can write this. It can contain number, just that it must not start with a number. Any question so far? Is there any part we don't understand? Okay, let's proceed. That now leads us to a little problem, and let's look at the problem together. We have this number of persons in class as a variable name, but then there are some instances where when you join words together like this, it gives you a different meaning entirely. Remember the introduction of variables to us? I said, please, as much as possible, let the label on your container explains the value inside it. In this case, I'm keeping it inside this container, and this 8 stands for the number of persons in class, which is fine. But there are some other instances whereby when you join words together like this, it gives you a different meaning entirely, which will no longer explain the value inside it or the contents of that container. So let's look at those circumstances together. Imagine I have a variable called go on, and let's say the value is 2. I want to keep 2 inside it, that is proceed, maybe go on. And of course, a variable must not have spaces in between. So if I remove the space now, it becomes variable goon. Well, it's very difficult for me to tell anybody that goon stands for go on. It gives me a different word entirely. So for this reason, we are going to go to what we call casing system. Casing system. Casing system is how we write variable names in order to make it readable to other developers or even to ourselves. Like I said earlier, nobody will know that go on stands for that goon stands for go on, because goon is a different word. It's very different from go on, not in any way related together. So if anybody sees this code tomorrow, the person will never imagine that this goon stands for go on. So in casing system is how you write your variable name when it contains more than one word. You want to write a variable name when it contains more than one word. And we're going to be looking at some of them together. Number 1, we'll be looking at the Pascal casing. Number 2, we'll be looking at the camel casing. Number 3, we'll be looking at the snake casing. Number 4, we'll be looking at the kebab casing. We're looking at these 4 casing systems. 4 casing. Let's pick the first one. Now, before we proceed, I need to quickly address one issue. If I say print, let's say I just want to print, let's say 7. If I run this code, it's going to throw back an error because it doesn't understand all these things I wrote here. I think there's something wrong with this online compiler. So we have all these errors, but you know that what we have here, I don't want Python to read them. Like, they are just meant to, so that you can understand what I'm saying. That's why I listed these things out. So I want to instruct Python to ignore whatever we have here. I want to instruct Python to ignore this and to ignore whatever we have here. So all I can do is I can highlight them and press Ctrl//. Can you notice hash at the back of each line? Are we together? This is called commenting. We are commenting them. This hash will comment this line. This hash will comment this line. This hash will comment this line. Same with this. And if I put hash here now, then it's going to comment that line. Meaning that Python will no longer read this line. I'm just telling Python to ignore these lines. So for that reason, I will just ignore these lines now. Now our error should go since Python has ignored whatever is here. Any question before we proceed? If you have any question, you can type it in the comment section. I can read them there. So let's look at this casing system before we go. The very first one, Pascal casing. Pascal casing. Let's see how that works. So at the beginning of the class, we talked about, we created a variable called number of students in class, and the value inside it was a, and we said that since the variable cannot have spaces in between, then it means we have to write it like this. But again, anybody that sees this, or someone that sees this, might pronounce it as maybe number of students, or the person can pronounce it anyhow and may not pronounce it as number of students in class. The person may not see it as number of students in class. So we need to write this code or this variable name in such a way that anybody that sees this will know that this stands for number of students in class. In Pascal casing, which is the first one we want to consider, it means it says that you start each word with a capital letter. You start each word with an uppercase. So in this case, how we start, N, which is the first word, then O will be another, will be in capital letter, S will be in uppercase again, same with I, and finally C. So this is number of students in class. So it means that when you see capital letter, you know that that's the beginning of a word. This is Pascal casing. So the other time we talked about a variable called go on. It means that will be like this, go on equals to. So it's not going to be, it will no longer be confusing to anybody that sees this, because once you see a capital letter, you know that that's the beginning of a word. Any question? Can we proceed? Okay, let's go to the next one, camel casing. Camel casing is very similar to Pascal casing.
I don't know what to do.
Camel casing is very similar to Pascal casing, except for one difference. The difference is that in case of camel casing, you start the first word with a small letter, while every other word
I have a question.
begins with capital letter. You start the first word with a small letter, while every other word begins with capital letter. So this is go on. So this is camel casing. Well, let me expatiate on this. Well, there are two types of camel casing. We have the upper camel casing and the lower camel casing. So what I just explained is known as the lower camel casing. In lower camel casing, you start the first word with a lowercase, while every other word begins with an uppercase. But in upper camel casing, you start every word with an uppercase, which makes it to be exactly as our Pascal casing. It makes it the same. So for that reason, we usually refer to lower camel casing as just camel casing. Since upper camel casing is the same as Pascal casing, so it's usually ignored. So when we say camel casing, most times, or almost during the course of our training, once I say camel casing, then know that I'm referring to lower camel casing. Can we proceed? Okay, let's go to the next one, the snake casing. Well, we are currently doing Python, so you won't be surprised to see snake casing. Now, in snake casing, you separate each word from the next using an underscore. You separate each word from the next using an underscore so that it becomes like this. Number of students in class. This is snake casing. Then finally, kebab casing. In this case, you separate each word from the next using an hyphen. This is kebab casing. Now, before we now talk, because we are going to be using only one of this. We won't be using all of this, but it's good I tell you about them. We won't be using all of this. We'll only be using one of them. Now, the one we'll be using is guess. Can anybody guess the one we're going to be using?
Snake.
Okay, someone said Pascal. Well, we'll be using snake casing since we are currently doing Python. We'll be using snake casing. Now, and let's talk about why we'll be using snake casing in the course of this class. There's something we call conventions. A convention is like a tradition in a community, custom in a community. When we are following convention, it means that we are following traditions, common practice in that community. So if you don't follow convention, it doesn't mean your code will not run. It will run. But just that you are not following the common practices, which is not good. Because it makes it difficult for other developers to adjust to your codes. Other developers that are working on other projects, when they see your code, they won't find it easy to adjust to your code, which is not cool. So in the Python community, the convention is snake casing. So meaning that even if you use Pascal casing, your code will still work. If you use camel casing, your code will still work. If you use kebab casing, your code will still work. But just that in this community, the convention is snake casing. That's what most people use. And for that reason, we will also be using snake casing in order to follow convention, the norms of the community. And I think the reason why it's like that is because we are currently doing Python, my assumption. Maybe because it is Python programming, okay. Since along the line we'll be downloading something called Anaconda, another snake. So it's fine, it's good we just use snake casing. Maybe probably that's the reason snake casing is commonly used in this community. So we'll be using snake casing for henceforth. Now, okay, let me add this before we call it. As time goes on, well, I used to have some issues adjusting to snake casing. I usually move between camel casing and snake casing. So sometimes if you see me type camel casing, come attention to it immediately so that I can switch back to snake casing. So I think that's what I need to add. So now, question before we go. Let me give us these questions and you will give me the answer. Write this variable name in snake casing and camel casing. Number 1. So I have this variable name, the highest mountain in the world, and the value is Everest. So I want you to write this in snake casing. What do I do? Or can any of you, if you are with your device, you can share your screen so that everybody can see it. The highest mountain in the world. Write this in snake casing. Just tell me what to do. This is like a classwork. We want to write this variable name in snake casing. or you can type in the comment section. Comment. Where is the comment? I think. Comment. Oh. Okay, someone said she didn't understand the last part. Okay, I'll explain that part again. The highest mountain in the world, correct? Correct. Then the other is Pascal casing. Pascal casing. I also write it in Pascal casing. Also write it in Pascal casing. So while we the Chimeze Otoye, you are right, the highest mountain in the world, correct? Now, before we go, let's have a summary of everything we've done so far today. Let's summarize everything. Then there will be time for questions. We ask questions before we call it a day. So today, we talked about what we call inbuilt commands. And I said, inbuilt commands are like verbs. When Python sees these commands, it automatically knows what to do. And the very first one we consider was print. And I said print means display something. So I can print this. For now, we are going to be dealing with numbers. In our next class, we'll look at something else other than numbers. So when I say print 12, then when I run it, it will print, it will display it. But if I didn't use print, if I just type 12, it won't display it. So print is like saying display it. Let's move on. Then we also talked about how to comment things. That is how to tell Python to ignore something. And to do that is you can highlight whatever you want to comment and press Ctrl / Ctrl plus CMTL plus / This should do it. So just highlight whatever you want to. I want to comment this. So just highlight it and press Ctrl / Alternatively, just go to the beginning of the line and press hash. It automatically comments it. So you are just telling Python to ignore whatever is on this line. Let's proceed. Then next, we talked about variables, and I said variables are containers where you store values. Variables are containers where we store our values. So to create a variable, it's very simple in Python programming. Just type the name of the label on the container and use equal to keep something in that variable. So I can say variable, let's say num equals to 8. So I'm saying that create a container called num, and this equal to will help me to store 8 inside this container. So the advantage of that is that it makes it very easy for me to use this same container sometime in the future. For instance, I can say print num. So when I say print num, it will print whatever is inside that container. So this will print 8. I can say print num plus 7. So that is print 8 plus 7. This will print out 15. So by storing it in the container, it makes it easy for me to reuse it, to use it at some other time in the future. Then we now talked about the rules that guide variable declaration. That we said a variable name must not have spaces in between. A variable name must not have must not be a special character, a keyword. It must not contain special characters, except dollars and underscore. Then a variable name must not, what else? Must not start with a number. A variable name must not start with a number. Then that led us to casing system. We talked about the Pascal casing, we talked about the camel casing, we talked about the snake casing, and we talked about the kebab casing. And I said for this class, we will be using the snake casing, mainly because that's the convention in the Python community. So, and to use the snake casing, we said all you need to do is to separate each word with an underscore. So, I can say variable my name equals to Taiwo. So what I'm saying is create a container for me called my name and insert Taiwo inside this container. I think that's the summary of everything we did today. In our next class, we'll be looking more into variables, one, and we'll be looking into something we call data types. Data types. Data types. Why is that important before we go? If I try to say print my name, remember I stored Taiwo inside my name. If I run it, it will throw back an error. Why is it throwing back an error? This will be discussed in our next class under data types. Any question? Please, we have the floor. We can unmute. We can unmute. Any question? Do we have any
Okay,
questions?
good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening. Please, do you have any question before we call it a?
Yes,
Good
yeah,
evening.
Yes, sir.
yes.
Good
My
evening, man.
question, can I go on? I have a question.
Okay, sir.
Okay, my question on the compiler window, I
Yes, sir.
can see two columns.
Sir?
One is I can see two columns on the compiler window.
Okay,
The
sir.
one is the main file and the shell. But so far, I can see that whatever we input in the main Python, the result is going to come out under the shell. So I just want to want more explanation on that.
Okay. We are going to type our. This place is like, you know, on the group. I asked us to download something called text editors or code editors. Now we can download. What's it called? Atom. We can download um, Sublime Text. We can download Visual Studio Code. Then I also said you can install Anaconda on your device. If you install Anaconda, then you install Jupyter Notebook after installing Anaconda. With that, you'll be able to do all of this. Now, the essence of all of this is to be able to write codes that Python will understand. The purpose of doing all of this is to write codes that Python understand. But thank God for this website. We don't need to install anything. Write your codes here. Once you write our codes, I will click on run. Python will execute it and show us the results here. But as time goes on, we'll be leaving this channel, we'll be leaving this page to maybe Anaconda for maybe yes, we'll be using Anaconda for our work. In fact, once we are done with level 1, from level 2 upward, we'll be using Anaconda. But for this part, since it's not necessary for us to install all these things for now, then we may still be doing all of this on this page. The idea is we write your code here and you click on run, it displays the results here. We write codes here, then we see results in this section.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, ma'am.
Please, the aspect of the camel casing, the upper and the lower casing, I didn't get that part. Please, can you give more explanation on it?
Okay. On camel casing,
Thank you.
let's look at a word. The password I gave the other time, the highest now we want to write this in upper camel casing, then in lower camel casing. In upper camel casing, you start each word with a capital letter.
Okay.
Let me correct the spelling of mountain. the highest mountain in the world. You will agree with me that this is the same as Pascal casing.
Yes.
So for that reason, upper camel casing is not really a thing, like in the programming world. Because instead of saying upper camel casing, we could just have easily said Pascal casing. In lower camel
Okay.
casing, you start the first word with a small letter, while every other word will begin with capital letter like this. So this is lower camel casing. For that reason, when we just say camel casing now, we are referring to the lower camel casing, because the upper camel casing is the same as your
As Oscar.
Pascal casing.
Yes.
Do we understand?
Yes,
Hello.
thank you.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. Sorry, I have a question.
Okay.
I initially thought this class was supposed to last for 2 hours. Am I
Is that
mistaken? I said I initially thought the class was supposed to last for 2 hours.
okay? Yes. I don't want to bombard us with too many things at a time.
Okay.
That's why. But we can continue if you want us to. I'm just thinking of
No,
bombarding us with too
no,
many
that's
things.
fine. Another question I have is, I know you've been talking about Anaconda and other programming languages and all that.
You said
For my, I said you talked about Anaconda the other time.
yes.
Like eventually we get to use Anaconda. How about Python itself? Is it not
How about
possible to Python itself?
okay? Let me explain this part. If you check the name of this file, or if you check here, you see something main.py.
Yes,
This
I
.py
understand.
stands for Python. Now,
Yes, I
Anaconda is
get
like
it.
a tool that allows
Mm-hmm.
us to write Python codes. Python is the programming language. Anaconda is just like a tool. It's not a programming language. Python is the language we are writing. Everything we've been writing here, everything you're going to write here, and all we've been writing, they are all Python codes. But a tool to write these codes, one of the tools we're going to be using or installing on our device is Anaconda.
I understand. Well, I asked that question because I am unable to install Anaconda. What I have is Python 3.10.
You said?
I said I asked that question because I'm unable to install Anaconda. What I have is Python 3.10.
What you have is
Python 3.10.
I can't tell. Please, can you type it out in the comment section?
Sorry.
I have a question.
Okay, so
Yeah, I believe on one of the days we had a chat concerning the start time.
8:30.
We agreed on 8:45 for, if I'm not mistaken. So that was the reason I joined the class late today. So I'd like us to have a specific time.
Okay, was it 8:45? Oh, sorry, my bad. I thought it was 8:30.
It
No,
was 8:30
8:45.
actually.
I'll check the group conversation. Sorry, I'll check the group conversation, but I thought it was 8:30.
It's actually 8:30 to
Okay, it was
10:30.
8:30. Okay. Python 3 is what I have, and I was unable to install Anaconda. Okay. No, Python is not an application. Python is not an application. The only way we'll be using Python is just like this, just to create a file. Python itself is not an application. So, okay, let me explain it this way. Those Anaconda enables us to write Python codes. Those things we've been installing on our device, they all enable us to write Python codes and to run it. In fact, the reason we are doing all of this is to be able to run. We want to be able to run this code. That's why we are just using this page to make our work so easy. It enables us to write and also to run. You may be able to write, but will not be able to run. So this enables us to write and run. Anaconda comes with both also, to write and to run, and with much more things. It also comes with many other tools. With many other tools. Well, you can install Python separately on your device. You can, so that you'll be able to run Python codes. But the Python you are installing in that case, how do I explain it now? Is okay, if you are installing Python separately on your code, we'll be using the device inbuilt, should I say, compiler now. When we get there, we are going to address all these parts. Once, in fact, we install Anaconda together and everything at the very right time. But I don't want to focus with all of that for now. I want us to focus mainly on the syntax, the logic of Python, using Python, running Python, because that's what we need at this first stage, to be able to understand the language itself. Running it is the least of the problem, like getting a platform to run it is the least of the problem. The number one thing is understanding the language. We need to understand the Python programming language, the syntax, the logic, how to think it. So when we see questions, how do we solve it? We are going to be preparing us for interviews in the course of this training, in this first stage. We are going to prepare us for Python interview questions. And we organize a day, and on that day, all we're going to be doing will just be interview questions, address it, and make us very strong for this. Okay, that
Hello.
Anaconda is a must for the course, no alternative. Um, well, I can say yes, it is. Reason is, we'll be using something called Jupyter Notebook. This Jupyter Notebook comes with Anaconda. You can also install it separately, but I tell you, this will give you more, like we are going to spend more time setting it up if you are installing it separately. But with Anaconda, a lot of things we are going to be installing or that we will need, they already come with Anaconda. You know, Anaconda is a big snake. So this Anaconda also is a big tool that comes with many other tools. So it's like all in one. Everything has already been packaged for us in Anaconda. So with that Anaconda, we have everything set up already. If you're going to be installing other things one after the other, then it's going to take a lot of time. We are going to be installing them on our device one after the other, maybe using our terminal. We're going to talk about the terminal later, one after the other, which will take more time. But with Anaconda, so I strongly advise that we use Anaconda for it. And also, after the class, you will realize that, and you start getting jobs or getting tasks to do, or you're employed with an organization. Most of those things we'll be doing, we also be on Anaconda using this thing called Jupyter Notebook. So that's why we have alternative. The alternatives are not options we are going to consider, because they are so stressful, and when we have not just easy ways, but the common ways, like is the norm in the community, is the norm. So instead of going to the hard way that is even hardly used, why not just go to the easy way that is also commonly used, and we solve our problem.
Good
Any other
evening.
question?
Good
Any other
evening.
question? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Excuse,
Um,
please, I have a question.
okay, you can go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I thought you said this class is going to be
You said,
recorded. Is this class going to be recorded?
I can't hear you. Oh, can you type it?
I said, is this class going to be recorded? Is
Yes,
it going to
we
be
are currently recording it. We are currently
recorded?
recording it, yes.
Okay. All right. Because we talked about our own different time zone. All right.
After the class, I will upload this online and I will send the link to us. Any other
All right.
question? Any other question?
Yes, I have a question,
Yes,
last
sir.
question from me.
Yes, sir.
So I discovered that for most of the command, we are using the brackets, open and close brackets. So what happens if one of these is not there?
Okay. Now, let me give an instance. We can say print 5, and this will also work fine. It's even, wow, it's throwing back an error. There's what we call Python 2 and Python 3. Like, it's like upgrade. In Python 2, you are allowed to do something like this and it will work. But in Python 3, it's like this. So if you are using Python 2, then this will work. But the current system, like the latest one is Python 3, and most systems have upgraded to Python 3. You are going, most of the courses you'll be saying now, I think most of them should be on Python 3 also. And in Python 3, we write things like this. When we get to functions, we will understand why we have these parentheses around them. We are going to do a topic called functions. When we get to functions, we're going to treat this. This print is a function, but an inbuilt one is an inbuilt function. So we're going to see how to create our own command. You are going to be creating something like this also because of the class. So and we understand why we have this. Why is this 5 within this parenthesis? Why not outside it? Why not like this? You understand all those things when we get to functions, when we start creating our own. Any other question?
Hello. Good evening.
Yes, sir.
Hello, please, I have
Yeah, good evening.
I
I have a
just a
question.
suggestion.
Okay, ma'am.
Hello, hello,
Hello, ma'am.
hello. Yeah,
Hello.
good evening, everyone. Yeah, please. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Just
ma'am. I can
I
hear you,
just
ma'am.
want to say it as a suggestion. Yeah, since you said that the editor will be using will be public Jupyter notebook on the Anaconda or public
Okay.
Python. I would just suggest just to um for just to help people that are just coming up in programming, maybe someone like us that are just learning to just stick to one editor, probably the one most of people are using on the platform, so that there will not be any confusion. Because I I was thinking that with everything you wrote tonight, then there should be a way to tell us where to save our code, so there will not be any form of losing the code. So I don't know if I'm making sense, but I think you understand me. You understand me, sir?
Okay. Alright, well, thank you, ma'am. So she's suggesting that we start using code editors to write our codes. Okay, maybe in our next class we are going to install some of those things, use them together, and we'll see how they work instead of using
It's
this
not what?
stage. Any other question?
Hello, good evening. Good evening. I have an addition.
Suggestion? Contribution?
I have a suggestion and something to add to
You said?
what you have been saying. I have a suggestion and something I can add to what you've been saying.
Okay.
All right. I would advise people who are just new to programming language to really understand what Mr. Tai Abidakun is telling us, that we should try and install Anaconda. Like myself, I've installed Anaconda, and in inside Anaconda you will find Jupyter Notebook. Now,
Yeah.
it will be easy, like the question they asked just now about saving codes. Jupyter Notebook will auto save whatever code you put in. It will auto save it for you. It will be there. You don't need to be disturbed about how am I going to save my code or whatsoever. So it's important we try and install Anaconda. It's just the best thing. And I'll also advise for people who are new to um, computer programming, we should try as much as possible to ask any question that might seem stupid to other people. Don't look at any other people. Please don't even mind. Just ask as many questions you can ask so that you understand everything they're teaching us. All right, that's my suggestion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you. We appreciate you. Thank you very much, sir. Any other question, contribution, suggestion before we go? Okay. In absence of questions, we call it a day. I'll send the link to us online. I'll send the link to us online on the WhatsApp group.